South Carolina and Texas A&M, Joe, this weekend. A&M coming off a very good victory over LSU. South Carolina coming off of a bye. Listen, I think that this game, like on field, has a lot of different and really good storylines to it. When you look at this game, what do you see and how do you see it playing out?
Well, certainly the biggest storyline that we have coming into this game, Blake, is that there's a ton of hype for Texas A&M after the way that they played against LSU last week. And it's justified because Mike Elko, first-year head coach, takes his team to new heights. They're playing great on defense. If Marcel Reed starting at quarterback, the rushing attack is very hard to prepare for and to scheme against. I think with that in mind, and I know a lot of people are calling this a potential trap game upset situation based on especially the way that Alabama played when they showed up and they played this game a few weeks ago. I can't help but still be very high on Texas A&M and their performance. And more importantly, I know you don't want to hear this because I know you want me to pick South Carolina, but more importantly,
no, I'm not picking South Carolina.
I'm just giving you shit. More importantly, though, South Carolina's offensive line that I bring up every single week, it's bad. It's one of the worst in the country. So far this year, they have allowed 32 sacks to their opponents. The games that they've played their best have been against teams that did not have defensive lines that could capitalize on that. Texas A&M, the way that they played against LSU, they were able to generate pressures against one of the best offensive lines, the best offensive line in the country. So, Blake, for me on that point, I'm super focused. What happens on the lines of scrimmage? Does Texas A&M take another game where they win? Because on both sides, they're just more talented and they're deeper.
I'm not going to be inappropriate. Anyway,
were you make a cock joke? Is that what you're going to do?
I was going to say that's what she said. Yeah. I mean, when you said
so, Cocktober's over. Cocktober's over.
Yeah. Well, Cocktober didn't really mean anything for them. But the bottom line here for me is when I look at this game, I agree with you at principle that A&M has built up a lot of favor and stock, and they should. I mean, they're the only undefeated team in the SEC at the current moment. They've been playing very well. What is the different dynamic that Marcel Reed does ultimately give them at quarterback? Those are all massive questions that we got to get answers to. And this is a tough play. This is a tough game for A&M. Emotional win on the road. South Carolina. It's a really good test for them. So, Joe, you're right. For me, throw all of that out. This ain't got nothing to do with the 32 sacks you talked about. South Carolina's has given up. In reference to, can you go after your program who historically you have not been able to get to the mark that you think that you as a program can get to? Can you go on the road at night in the SEC in a hostile environment and take care of business? Joe, when we see teams like a Georgia, like when we see teams like a Bama in the very beginning, what did they show early signs of? Very emotional win, then returning right behind that against what is going to be a hostile environment and going and getting a win. That you're changing the narrative of you as a program. Now, on the field, Joe, I got to push back on one thing. I think that they give them defensively some serious challenges. I mean, offensively, some serious challenges. That defensive line, I don't care what you say. When you look at them, they're 16th in the country in run defense. They're 13th in the country in total defense. Okay? You cannot convince me whatsoever that they cannot keep this game close and early. Joe, here's what I would characterize it as on field. South Carolina is good enough in their front seven to take away your run game. They have been that good. What can Marcel Reed throw you into a win when he needs to? He doesn't have to be special. He doesn't have to do anything special throwing the football. Can he do it, though, if the run game's not there in certain drives or in certain spots? That's what I think you need to go in there and look. However, to your point that I fully agree with, I don't trust Shane Beamer. I don't trust that offensive line. I don't trust Lenora Sellers. But I do trust their defense because, Joe, how about this? South Carolina is number one in the SEC in drives on defense. They have more drives than any other defense in the conference. That's more than Mississippi State, who's horrible. That's more than Texas at times that will speed things up on you. They have, for what it's worth, been very solid throughout the season. Can they replicate that against A&M? And Joe, we've seen goofier shit this year in this sport happen. I'm not, when a team is that good on one side of the football, Joe, I am not and will not say that they're going to get blown out because anything can happen. I look at Jalen Milroe, who's getting sacked. Joe, how many times in the first half? 4?
Well, but to already jump in on this conversation that we're expanding upon, I'm not going to disagree at all with South Carolina's front seven. I mean, it's phenomenal. It is in the upper echelon of the country. Kyle Kennard, Dylan Stewart. I mean, they have been fantastic.
Talking Hemingway, dude.
Yeah, talking Hemingway as well. But like you're bringing up the Alabama game, like that was after Alabama was dealing with some of their issues, some of their miscommunication issues, their offensive line just not playing well together as a unit. To push against that, the way that they played against LSU, the way that they get them.
No, that happened to them halfway through the season.
What?
That happened to Bama halfway through a year? No, they dominated.
Wait, I'm talking. We're talking about two completely different things. I'm just going to move past that because I don't. We're going to get distracted. We're talking about two completely different things. The way that they played against LSU's offensive line, which is one of the best in the country, does make me feel like that they're going to hit home. But you mentioned here, outside of that, that's what's been helping them win these games. That was why they beat Oklahoma, was because their front was so overwhelming for one of the worst offensive lines in the SEC that it took them out of the equation. Oklahoma couldn't do anything. They had no control in that game because that front seven was so good. I don't see that as that game, though, here, where that front seven for South Carolina completely takes over. Will they have success? Will they get sacks? Will they get big tackles for loss? Will they force turnovers? 100%. But I don't know if that South Carolina can find success on their own end moving the football on offense, especially because it is so required of them to have consistency running the football. And right now, Texas A&M this season has been one of the most quietly good run defenses in the country, only allowing 3.5 yards per carry and 104 rush yards per game.
And South Carolina's has been better than theirs. I mean, so like if you're going to use the statistical analysis, one is 18th and the other is 16th. South Carolina is better and giving up less yards per rush. So I get what you're saying, but to my point here, I saw an offensive line, Joe. I know that it's Connor Wigman and Marcel Reed can move, so it's different. I saw an offensive line that gave up 4 sacks in the first half to LSU too. So Chase Basantis being out potentially again. I don't know about that. I don't know if they can. Yeah, Braden Swinson had 2. Savion Jones, I think, had a sack, if I'm not mistaken, or it's 3 or 4, but definitely more than 2 they had. That's why Wigman wound up getting out of the game. He kept getting sacked. Look it up.
No, you're right.
I know. They didn't have a sack in the second half.
Well, there's this box score is incorrect because it says Whit Weeks had 7 sacks, which it's not true.
No, he had no sacks.
Yeah, I don't know who did this ESPN box score, but this is insanely wrong.
Take that out because Whit Weeks didn't have a sack. Outside of the 7, what did they have?
It said Braden Swinson had 1, Greg Penn had 1, Zy Alexander had 1, and Suggs had 1.
Right. That all happened with Connor Wigman. And Marcel Reed can move, and he can get out of that pressure. But all I'm saying, too, I think everybody is focusing in on Blake, South Carolina's offensive line's bad. You're right. They are. I'm not disagreeing with you on that. And I think A&M's going to be able to get after them. That's why I'm picking them to win the football game. But I think it's just as big of a level of concern. It was a tale of 2 halves, Joe. Okay, Marcel Reed, LSU can't stop a zone read, did not stop the fact that they were dominating in the first half, getting after the quarterback. Doesn't change that fact. And what I do know is South Carolina is better defensively than LSU is. They have a better secondary. They're better coached. So I don't think that they win, but everybody's saying, I think South Carolina is going to make this a dogfight and win.
Yeah. No, I'm not going to jump on that side that I think that Texas A&M boat races, then that's not on the table here.
I don't think that they do. But to be fair, because I think A&M is going to win. To be fair here, A&M fans listening to this clip, they're going to get pissed. Oh, this is the A&M hater. No, your perception starts going up more. You're talking about a top 7, top 6, top 5. Joe, they might win the SEC at this point because they're in that conversation of where they're at. Georgia's highly inconsistent. Ole Miss is pretty much out of that race. Can they beat Texas at home at the end of the season? That's when you go on the road. That's why I started this in the beginning. When you go on the road and take care of business after an emotional win, you're putting a stamp on who you are in the season. You can bet and rest assured. Joe, are they going to lose 2 of their last 4 games? It ain't going to happen. So then they're going to be in Atlanta. You're getting to a point here with if you go on the road and take care of business this week, I'm not saying that you're writing your ticket, but man, oh man, you start looking like you're going towards Atlanta even more.
So before we move on here, you bring up twice now a really good point here. Texas A&M, this is one of those typical situations where for any team, now I'm not saying this is Texas A&M specific, a lot of teams under a first-year coach and just in general, first time getting like a real big win like that, and you're undefeated and you're super hyped up. This is a setting where you show up and you're looking past an opponent. I'm not saying that you're going to, but this is where a lot of teams fall for this trap and why it should be classified as a trap game. I think if you come out of this game and if you win it and you win it confidently, that to me is an indicator that Elko has taken this team, is the right adult in the room, and is taking this team to that next level to be good enough to compete for an SEC championship game. That, if we're just talking narratives, that's what I'm looking at.
If Mike Elko gets the SEC championship game at that place when they were 5-7 the year before, he is the national coach.
He's coach of the year, 1,000%.
No, without a doubt. All right, let's move on here.
BetOnline remains your top spot for all of your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL are all in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for 50% off your first deposit. That is a 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline, where the game starts.